Of all of the new Dark Pokemon introduced in the Team Rocket expansion, Dark Raichu is the only one that I would actually say is good. Dark Vileplume is a great support card, and Dark Blastoise can be good if it has support from base set Blastoise, but Dark Raichu is the only one that I would say is great on its own. As a Stage 1 evolution, it has more HP than most Stage 2s in this expansion. It also has an attack that can really disrupt your opponent, and you can get this Surprise Thunder attack off on turn 2 super consistently thanks to movie promo Pikachu. Pikachu's recharge attack lets you attach an energy as your attack, so when you go into turn 2, you already have 2 energy attached. You just need to slap down one more and you can start Surprise Thundering every turn. It's a very straightforward deck and it's also really fun to play, so let's break it down. So we will be running a playset of that movie promo Pikachu. That recharge attack is very effective in getting your setup. The way I've been playtesting this deck, I can consistently get 3 energy attached to Pikachu and evolve it on turn 2 every single time. We'll also run 4 of the Dark Raichu. Now this card was the very first secret rare ever introduced to the Pokemon TCG. And for support, I also have Scyther in here, a playset of those. It helps cover Dark Raichu's weaknesses. Raichu's weak to fighting, so if you run into Hitmonchan, you're going to have some trouble. Scyther resists fighting, so you can actually swap out into that, charge it up a little bit, and put some damage on a Hitmonchan for a Raichu to finish up. Boss's Way helps you get that Raichu every time on turn 2. If you can get one of these into your hand before you get the Raichu, it's pretty much the same as getting it in your hand. Now, Rocket Sneak Attack is in here because I run a Disruption model with this deck. Because I'm only using 12 Pokemon, that really frees up all of my trainers. That Surprise Thunder attack is already disruptive alone, but when you throw in Rocket Sneak Attack, which lets you basically get rid of trainers in your opponent's hands, and then you have things like Energy Removal, Super Energy Removal, that can stall them out while you keep racking up damage on their active as well as their bench with Raichu, it can put your opponent in a really hard spot. 4 Professor Oaks help you get those Pikachus faster. That way you can go ahead and set those up on your bench, as well as getting Raichus in your hand or Boss's Way so that you can search out those Raichu. Running 4 Energy Removal and 4 Super Energy Removal just to amp up that disruption. You can mess with your opponent's side of the field, make them really think about how they have to play, and put them in really tough binds to get out of. Item Finder's in here just so you can recycle all of these cards, reusing those disruption cards over and over again, never giving your opponent a break. Computer Search is also in here so that you can get exactly what you need when you're in really tough spots. A full playset of those is a bit much, just because you're having to discard some of your best utility cards. But like I said, only running 12 Pokemon, you have a lot of freedom with your trainers. I keep those computer searches in there just in case I get in a really hard spot and I need to pull a Scyther or I need to get another Professor Oak to refill my hand. Nightly Garbage Run is a staple in any format that includes the Rocket expansion. It's in this deck to make sure that you never run out of those lightning energy, that you can keep them in your deck. Every now and then you'll need it to replenish a Scyther or a Raichu. It's just an all-around great card. It keeps you from decking out, and it makes sure that you can get back any cards that get discarded. So this deck is kind of foolproof against energy removals and super energy removals because it runs Nightly Garbage Run. You can just get those back. 18 energy in this deck, which is quite a bit, but you want to make sure those are staying in your deck. That way when Pikachu uses Recharge, you can pull those straight out of there. Every now and then you will be using Pikachu's second attack, which is pretty good for 3 lightning energy. You deal 50 damage, but you have to discard them all. You can Nightly Garbage Run those back in, but also this amount of energy will make sure that you can set up multiple Dark Raichus on your bench and have them ready to go at any time. In playtesting this deck, I found that my favorite setups were starting with a Scyther as my active Pokemon. That way I can play Professor Oaks, I can pull out more Scythers, get those Pikachus on the field, and then go ahead and slap down an energy on one of the Pikachus that I get. That way I can just retreat Scyther, put in that Pikachu, and use Recharge. That way I'm starting the next turn with those 2 energy. And in playing this deck against some of the big base set era decks, I found that it actually fares pretty well, which is surprising since most Rocket decks can't really compete or stack up against the base set ones. And obviously, Dark Raichu has a great matchup against Rain Dance. Because you can get it set up so fast, oftentimes you're going to be able to knock out Squirtles before they can evolve, or even if they do evolve into a Blastoise, you can put a big chunk of damage on those before they can start racking it up against you. The main problems that you do run into with this deck are Hitmonchan, but again, that's why the Scythers are in this deck, and also things like Magmar, those high HP basics that compose Haymaker that can put some chip damage on you and also some special conditions. And because Surprise Thunder only deals 30 damage, even though you do have that chance to deal 10 or 20 damage to everything on their bench, 30 damage isn't putting that much of a dent in big basics like Chansey, Kangaskhan, Lickitung, and you can get walled by those a little bit, but also you're dealing damage to them, that includes the spread damage, faster than they can deal it to you, especially with things like Chansey. But because this is a disruption deck, you're going to be discarding your opponent's energy just as fast as they can put them on there. So you're actually stalling out their side of the field as soon as you get your super quick setup. Another way you can run this deck that's more stable and more solid is by using base set Electabuzz. It's a great card, probably one of the best attackers in the game at this point. But when you're adding that Electabuzz, you're detracting from what the point of the deck is. Electabuzz is adding more bulk to the deck, and it's giving you another attacking option, but it's also slowing down your ability to get those Surprise Thunders off and disrupt your opponent. Now, if you're running Electabuzz, I would opt for putting potions and super potions in this deck as well, since you're already going to be running slower. So if you're opting for the more stable version of this deck, I would say get rid of the Rocket Sneak attacks, the energy removals, and super energy removals, and replace those with potions, super potions, and plus powers. The version of this deck that I use does not use plus powers. That's because if you're throwing down 1 or 2 plus powers on a Dark Raichu, Surprise Thunder is only going to be dealing 40 or 50 damage, which isn't enough to get a one-hit KO on anything that's going to be used in the game at this point. You're typically aiming for around 60 damage to get an easy knockout in this format. And if your base damage is 30, it's going to be really difficult to pull that off. And that's why I don't use plus powers. I think that the version I have here right now is the fastest possible version and the best version of this deck you can play. So you guys let me know down in the comments what you think about this build. Let me know if you've played this before, and also tell me what kinds of decks you want me to look at in the future. Or not, because I ain't gonna write you a love song. That's a Raichu pun.